as I was crossing the street, there was a truck at the stop sign, and there's a teenage driver. She didn't see me because of the truck, and she went right through the stop sign, and she hit me at about 25 miles an hour. And I was thrown in the air, thrown first into her windshield. The windshield spider shattered. I was thrown back into the street.
Have you ever experienced a moment that changed the way you see the world? A moment that opened your eyes to the power of compassion and empathy? I used to be like any other person in a big city, always in a hurry, focused on my own goals, and often oblivious to the struggles of those around me. It wasn't until one day, while waiting for my coffee at a local cafe, that everything changed. As I stood in line, lost in my thoughts, I overheard a conversation between the barista and a woman who seemed distressed. She was sharing her story of her son's battle with addiction and the pain it had brought to their family. I couldn't help but feel a twinge of empathy. Remembering Dr. Peter Levine's teachings on addiction and trauma, I decided to delve deeper into his work. I learned about the profound impact of compassion and understanding in helping those struggling with addiction. It wasn't just about feeling sorry for someone. It was about truly understanding their pain and offering support without judgment. Armed with this new perspective, I reached out to the woman at the cafe. I listened to her story, offering a compassionate ear and a shoulder to lean on. I didn't have all the answers, but my presence alone seemed to bring her some comfort. As time went on, I noticed a change in the atmosphere at the cafe. More people started opening up about their own struggles, knowing that they would be met with understanding and kindness. The cafe became a place of support and connection, with people from all walks of life coming together to share their stories and offer a listening ear. Through this experience, I learned that compassion is not just a virtue. It's a way of life. It's about seeing the humanity in others, even when their actions may seem incomprehensible. And as I looked around at the faces of those I had touched, I knew that Dr. Peter Levine's insights had sparked a transformation that would endure for generations to come.
I was going to go up to LA for my friend's 60th birthday. And as I was crossing the street, there was a truck at the stop sign, and there's a teenage driver. She didn't see me because of the truck, and she went right through the stop sign, and she hit me at about 25 miles an hour. And I was thrown in the air, thrown first into her windshield. The windshield spider shattered. I was thrown back into the street. And I was, of course, completely dazed, and I didn't know what was happening. I couldn't collect my thoughts. I couldn't understand what was happening. Then I saw her run out of the car, open the car door, and I saw the terror on her face. And I realized that I'd been hit by the car. But of course I had no idea how seriously injured I was, no idea. And a off-duty paramedic came, and he announced himself. I'm a paramedic. And I turned my head to orient towards where the voice was coming from, his voice was coming from. And as soon as I started to move, he yelled, "Stop, don't move your head. Your neck could be broken." Yeah. And so I went back into a deeper shock. And I went in so deeply that I left my body, which is an experience that traumatized people have. I mean, it was as though I floated above my body, and I was looking down at this whole event, seeing my crumpled body laying there, and seeing him, commanding me what to do. And then he started firing questions. I mean, what was my name? Where was I going? What's today's date? And I said, "Please, just leave me alone. I'll answer your questions later." And in being able to do that, I felt a little bit less helpless. And he took my pulse, and some little time later, a woman came by, and she said, I'm a doctor. I'm a pediatrician, actually. Is there anything I can do? And I said, please, sit by me. And she did, and she grasped my hand, and I could feel her hand, and I could smell the scent of her perfume, and the soothingness of her voice. And all of that gave me this feeling that I'm not alone.
Dr. Peter Levine, a pioneer in somatic experiencing, has dedicated his life to understanding the profound impact of trauma on the human body. But his work goes beyond simply understanding trauma. It's about harnessing a powerful tool for healing: compassion. We often think of trauma as a psychological wound, but it leaves a deep imprint on our physical selves. Traumatic experiences can get trapped in our bodies, creating tension patterns and limiting our ability to live fully. Compassion, in this context, isn't just about feeling sorry for someone. It's about acknowledging their experience, witnessing their pain without judgment. It's about creating a safe space where the body can begin to release that trapped energy. Through somatic experiencing, a therapist acts as a compassionate guide. They help the client reconnect with the body's sensations, allowing the frozen energy to be expressed and released in a safe environment.
And by having that feeling, I was able to go into my body and feel where the shock was locked in my body. And then I was gradually able to let the shock move through, listening to my body in its unspoken voice. And I experienced waves of shaking and trembling. I felt my left hand wanting to go up as it had done to protect my head from hitting on the car, the windshield. And then after a little while, more shaking, more trembling, more waves of heat, waves of rage, red rage. And the words, how could that idiot, how could she go through a stop sign? I mean, always trauma, you have to have somebody to blame. But then I started, and then feeling my hand come out to protect myself from hitting my head against the road, Highway 1. And then the ambulance came, and the woman was very nice. She let me use her cell phone to call somebody to meet me at the hospital. And I had asked, can we go to the local hospital? Because there was one hospital a mile or two away. And she said, no, we have to go to a major trauma center because you very likely have internal bleeding, internal injury. So I said, well, and she took my pulse and my heart rate. And she took it again. And I said, can you tell me what the pulse, what it is, what my vitals are? And she said, no, I'm sorry, I can only tell that to the doctor. And I said, well, actually, I am a doctor. Half truth, right? I mean, I'm a doctor of one kind. And she said, well, I have to check again. She said, something must be wrong. I said, what do you mean? She said, well, your heart rate is 74, your pulse, your blood pressure is 120/70.
Our bodies can hold on to the stress and tension of difficult experiences. Somatic experiencing focuses on becoming aware of these physical sensations, a crucial step in healing. Let's imagine Peter, who recently experienced a car accident. As he sits here, he might notice a tightness in her chest, a lingering sense of shallowness in her breath. These are potential signs of somatic experience. Sometimes, somatic experience can manifest as tingling or numbness in certain areas. Peter might feel a coldness or a dull ache in his hands, perhaps where she gripped the steering wheel during the accident. Emotional responses can also be physical. A wave of nausea or a sudden urge to cry could be the body releasing pent-up emotions related to the trauma. These physical sensations are not something to be afraid of. They hold valuable information about what our bodies are experiencing. Through gentle movement exercises or guided visualization, She can explore these sensations further, allowing the trapped energy to release and the healing process to begin. Recognizing and understanding these signs of somatic experience is the first step towards healing from trauma. By paying attention to our bodies, we can unlock a powerful pathway to wholeness.
He said, well, when I talked to the paramedic, your heart rate is about 160. I don't understand. And so then, of course, I never miss an opportunity to teach. And so I explained to her what I was doing. And she said, and when we just arrived at the hospital, she said, you know, a few weeks ago we had a course in critical incident debriefing where we all had to talk about, you know, the horrible things that we had experienced. And I felt so much worse after it. But it seems like you didn't do anything like that at all. Would you be willing to come and teach us a class? And I said, sure, and I gave him my contact information. But I was greatly relieved that my method worked, for sure. But there was another thing that was important. You know, it's nothing that nobody can do it for us, but we really can't do it alone. I mean, even with 40 years of developing the methodology and working literally with thousands of clients, I don't think I could have done what I did, certainly not as effectively, had that pediatrician, had that woman come there and sat there with her warmth, with her presence. And actually this conference that we're going to tomorrow, it's really a lot about the presence that the analyst, the therapist, brings to bear as a critical component, maybe even the critical component in what happens in the person's healing. So, you know, there's a Motown song. It goes something like, it takes one to stand in the dark alone, it takes two to let the light shine through. So I think this is, and a number of my students have, you know, taken this work and developed it in ways that people use it in their own communities, so that when there's a disaster, they are empowered to help each other, because there's not that kind of mental health capacity, and most of the mental health capacity really doesn't even understand about how to do this work like this. So by empowering people to help each other, I think we have another tremendously important application of this body of knowledge, of this way of attending to and working with the organism and helping people contact that unspoken voice, the voice without words, that voice which is so profoundly wise and timeless, and which will guide us back towards wholeness.
In my own research based from NIH information, compassion has long been regarded as a core part of our humanity by contemplative traditions, and in recent years, it has received growing research interest. Following the recent review of existing conceptualizations, compassion has been defined as consisting of the following 5 elements. 1. Recognizing suffering. 2. Understanding the universality of suffering in human experience. 3. Feeling moved by the person suffering and emotionally connecting with their distress. 4. Tolerating uncomfortable feelings aroused fear, distress, so that we remain open to and accepting of the person's suffering. And 5. Acting or being motivated to act to alleviate suffering, as a prerequisite to developing a high-quality compassion measure, and furthering research in this field. The current study empirically investigated the factor structure of the 5-element definition using a combination of existing and newly generated self-report items. This study consisted of 3 stages: a systematic consultation with experts to review items from existing self-report measures of compassion and generate additional items. Stage 1. Exploratory factor analysis of items gathered from Stage 1 to identify the underlying structure of compassion. Stage 2. And confirmatory factor analysis to validate the identified factor structure. Stage 3. Findings showed preliminary empirical support for a 5-factor structure of compassion. consistent with the five-element definition. However, findings indicated that the tolerating factor may be problematic and not a core aspect of compassion. This possibility requires further empirical testing. Limitations revisions from included measures lead us to recommend against using these items collectively to assess compassion. They concluded that compassion entails five elements that apply to the self or others. 1. Recognizing suffering. 2. Understanding the universality of suffering in human experience. 3. Feeling for the person suffering and emotionally connecting with their distress. 4. Tolerating any uncomfortable feelings aroused fear, disgust, distress, anger, so that we remain accepting and open to the person in their suffering. And 5. Acting while being motivated to act to alleviate the suffering. In the aftermath of trauma, the world can feel shattered. We carry the weight of the experience, etched not just in our minds, but also in the tension coiled within our bodies. It's a place where fear and pain can linger, keeping us trapped in a state of fight or flight. But here's the inspiring truth. Compassion, a force as powerful as any storm, can be the key to unlocking this prison. It's not just about feeling sorry for someone. It's about offering a safe space, a gentle hand on the shoulder that says, "I see you. I hear you. You are not alone." Compassion is the bridge from the shattered self to the whole one. It's the catalyst that allows our bodies to heal, our minds to find peace, and our spirits to soar again. It's a light that illuminates the path back to ourselves, a path paved with understanding, forgiveness, and the unwavering belief that we can rise above the darkness. Please subscribe to Inside Serene and get notified when we publish a new video that promotes mental fitness. With compassion, you could save lives.